I am a planner, which has some good things and it has some pitfalls. And I want to share one of those pitfalls with you today. I love planning. I love having things organized. I love knowing what to expect. I love being able to figure things out in advance. And that's all great. Nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But I am learning that with being a planner in homeschooling, I try to plan out in advance, 2 or 3 years down the road, what curriculum we're using. And I also like to shop sales. And those two combined can create a problem because I can decide that in 2 years, we're going to use this curriculum. And then I find a sale for that curriculum and I buy it. And then in the course of those 2 years, I decide we're going to change our plans for whatever reason. That didn't work for us how I thought, or I found something I liked better, or you have it, and I have bought a piece of curriculum that we now are not using. So I am learning to plan and hold on to that plan loosely and not buy quite so far in advance. Now, not that I will never buy in advance, but let's not buy 2 years in advance. Let's just work on, the year we're working on. So today I'm going to share with you kind of where I've gone with that pitfall. So I have, I think, 5 pieces of curriculum that I purchased when I was planning what to do with my now kindergartner. Really, actually, before we even started doing homeschool with her much, I was like, oh, we're going to use these things in kindergarten, first grade. I'm just going to buy them in advance because I found sales. And now that I'm doing school with her, I've decided, I'm not going to do those. So I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to share why I wanted to use them in the first place, and then what made me decide not to use them, because I feel like that's good information for you as you're looking at a curriculum. Why did somebody like something? Why did they decide not to use it? It might be helpful for you as you guys are planning what you like. And it's kind of good, at least I like seeing that I'm not the only one who does these stupid things and buys things that they don't need. So with all of that, none of these are bad things. By the way, I wouldn't not recommend them, which is why I'm going to share with you what I liked and then why I didn't use them. And these, again, are not things that we started using and then stopped using. These are things I bought and then we've decided not to use at all, at least for the timing. So the first one is the Ordinary Parent's Guide to Teaching Reading. And this has excellent reviews. I love the Well-Trained Mind. I do not dislike this curriculum. I bought this when I was looking at starting to teach my youngest to read. I'm like, oh, we're going to teach her in the next year or two. And one of my sisters raved about this. She loved it. It worked super well. And I've heard other great reviews. I love the Well-Trained Mind. I love their books. I was like, oh, great. I'll use their stuff. So I bought this book. And then my daughter was ready to read pretty early. She started learning to read when she was 4, I think. And this was too advanced. I was looking through it as I'm getting ready to teach her going, I like the method. I like the way this teaches. Like I said, nothing wrong with this in and of itself, but this is not designed for a 4-year-old. It just isn't. It's going too fast. I don't feel like it has enough repetition. I don't feel like it has enough. I'm looking at it going, this is just not for her. And so we ended up going with something else. And again, nothing wrong with this book. I hadn't had the experience with my child, and I didn't know when she was going to read early enough that this wasn't going to work for her. So would I recommend this? Sure. I haven't used it. But for a really, really young learner, no, not so much. So we're not getting rid of this because I have a program we love and I plan to use it with my other kids. But again, you never know. Maybe that program just won't work well for one of my other kids and I'll want to use this as a resource. Or maybe I'll use this as a reference because I think would make a great reference. So that's why we decided not to go with this one. Another item that I bought that I wish I hadn't. And again, not because it's a bad item, but because we are just not using it, is the Classical Conversations Foundation's memory work audio tracks. I had planned to not use Classical Conversations, but to use their memory work. And so these were massively on sale because they were not going to be doing CDs, just going straight to digital downloads. So I was like, I'll buy them. They're super on sale. I plan to play them just for my kids during breakfast. You have it. And as I have gone into this, figuring out what we're doing for history more and what we're doing for all these topics, I've just realized that the memory work that they're having kids work on in these CDs are not necessarily what we're going to focus on. I will have my kids do memory work with their history. I'll have them memorize a timeline, but it's not necessarily going to be the timeline that they have on here. So we may still use a few tracks on here, but I'm not going to be using the majority of it. And so I just feel like it wasn't worth the money because it's just not something we're using. So I wouldn't have purchased. Again, is the content in here great? Yes. Is the memory work great? Yes. Is it a good method? Sure. And it might work for somebody. It just wasn't for us. And I didn't know that until I'd done a little bit of a deeper dive into what we're actually doing and what memory work I actually want them to do. I'm not necessarily going to follow somebody else's preset memory work. I'm going to do something that I feel like is applicable to what we're learning that year. So another one, and this was a recommendation from the Well-Trained Mind book. And again, not a bad recommendation. I would just bought too early. I was like, oh, sure, we'll do that, before I realized that this just isn't me. And it's just not going to happen. It just becomes a busy work. And that is the Big Book of Play and Find Out Science Project. And I was going to use this for their science for like kinder or first grade. And this is just not going to happen. It's just not. I'm just not an experiment. My husband might do some of these, but he's not like go by the book. He's like, oh, let's experiment with this and go do it. And that's great. He doesn't have to do somebody's book. But this is not the way we're going to pursue science. So I found another way that I want to start next year. And it does have experiments. It does have hands-on factors. Not like I'm against that. It's just, I'm just not going to be going and doing a lot of crafts and projects with my kids for science, especially when it's this early. In kindergarten, they don't need it. And so it's just not my priority right now. Again, great. And if somebody loved this kind of thing, then totally. I just hadn't learned my learning style yet when I bought that. And it's just not my teaching style. So that is 3. Another one that I purchased and I was able to resell. So again, don't like lose hope. If you like buy something and aren't going to use it, you can often resell it on like Facebook Marketplace or what have you. And this one I was able to sell via Facebook. And I'll throw a picture of it up here somewhere. But that was Apologia's Exploring Creation with Zoology 2. It was their swimming creatures. And I'd seen their science and I was going to use their science. And I loved it. I ordered it. We looked at it and we were happy with it. And that was the plan. And then I found a science that I loved even more. And I'm not going to use that science for another year. So I bought it just too early. I bought it 2 years in advance and I didn't need to do that. I'm learning. And I have just another science that I want to use. And so do I dislike Apologia Science? No. Do I think it's a good option? Yes. Could I see using it? Yes. But I like what I found. And so I just need to wait to buy things. You're getting this common thing. Okay, lastly, and this is one that is massively popular. I have multiple siblings who love it. I've heard wonderful reviews. Again, the Well-Trained Mind, you can see they influence me a lot. And I know it's just one of the number one picks for homeschool mamas these days for history is Story of the World. And so I went and I bought this used and I bought this used. And I decided I didn't like it. Now, I feel like why I'm not going to use this is a bigger video than this video. So if you're interested in knowing why I'm not going to use Story of the World and what I don't like about it, what pushes me away from it, I am happy to make a video on just that. So comment below if that's interesting to you. But I didn't know that, and I may not have known that until I got these books and actually read through and looked at. But I've done some more digging and I found something else that I like equally as well. So I'm happy with that decision. It took me a while to realize that I was okay with not liking this. I really wanted to use this. I mean, I love a lot of things about it. And so when I decided not to use it, I was like, oh gosh, what am I going to use? Especially for the early years. And I found something to use at least for the ancient level, because I am going to do that classical cycle of history. But yeah, we're not going to use it. So I'm going to try not to, like with the Ordinary Parent's Guide of Teaching Reading, I'm going to keep it. I feel like there are pieces of this I can use, like the activities in the back, and there's bits and pieces that I will scavenge from my purchase. And again, I bought used, so that helps a lot. But as a whole, this is not the curriculum we're going with, and I'm kind of sad I bought it because, you know, who wants to spend money they're not going to use? So I know we have other things that we purchased. I know there's some things that we've gotten and we've tried out and they just haven't panned out for us. And that I feel like is different because at least we've used it and it's just not worked for us. Like it wasn't that I bought it too early. It was that, you know, just some things just aren't a fit. These things are all things that I just shouldn't have bought 2 years in advance. And I think most of these I did buy like 2 years or 3 years in advance. And so I'm learning not to buy 2 years in advance. We're going to stick with the next year or the year we're currently in. Because things just don't always go according to plan. And I love planning and I love having a plan and I love knowing what I think we're going to use in 3 or 4 years. But the truth is that just isn't what it is. So as a young homeschool mom who is inexperienced in this aspect of homeschooling, I am learning and I am sharing with you what I'm learning so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Yeah, I would be interested to know if I can't be the only one who does this. I know not everybody plans as far as I am, but if you are an over planner and you like to shop sales, so therefore you're an over purchaser, comment below and let me know. I would like to know if that's something that most homeschool moms struggle with, or if it's just those of us who really like to plan in advance. So thanks for joining me today. I won't say I enjoyed sharing this with you because who wants to like buy things and they're like, I bought too much. But at the same time, it's good for me to recognize. It's good for me to share with other people. So thanks for joining me today.